Welcome everybody to today's DAI webinar. We've got a very special guest, Michael Horvich from somewhere in America, whose partner had dementia. He's going to do a presentation for us and then show a very moving documentary called Alzheimer's, a Love Story that's been winning awards all around the world. So I currently meant to buy this film to be able to watch it or attend a film festival. So we're quite privileged to have you here, Michael. I'm going to hand it over to you now. I'll just unmute you.
Oh, yes. Did you do that? Yes, you did. Okay. Welcome, everyone. I'm actually in outside of Chicago, Illinois, in the United States. It's about 2:34 here. Beautiful sunny day and 63 degrees. So that's the weather report. I'll kind of read you my resume because it makes it a little easier. It's a short one. I taught for 30 years. I taught all different kinds of students and students with different kinds of needs. I've been retired for about 20 years. And I find that I don't know how I had enough time to work. Currently, I am an educator, speaker, storyteller, writer, poet, photographer, blogger, artist, jeweler, bookbinder, lecturer, actor, supernumerary with the Lyric Opera of Chicago. Up until recently was a full-time caregiving partner for Gregory. And I don't know what'll come next. But as you can tell, I don't know how to slow down, and that's good. I'm really pleased to be with you here today, and I appreciate Kate for the idea, and DAI, Dementia Alliance International, for making the gathering possible. There are a number of faces that I recognize, and some of the faces out there that I don't know. For those of you that are calling in, I can't see your face at all, but that's okay because I know it's a friendly one. Some of you stayed up very late to be with us. Some of you got up very early. And most amazing to me is that some of you can foretell the future because it's already tomorrow where you live. So please let me know how today in my presentation goes. Before we view the documentary, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I'd like to talk a very little bit about the disease called dementia Alzheimer's, explain how the documentary came to be, and then afterwards field questions from you. My comments will take approximately 10 minutes, and the documentary runs for 15. The story I'm about to share with you is a very personal one. I'm comfortable if I have to cry in front of you, but crying and talking is very difficult to do at the same time. So if I do get choked up, I will pause, take a few deep breaths, and then be right back. So thank you for your understanding. Gregory, my husband of over 41 years, who I met in the late 70s, we lived in a committed same-sex relationship before it was fashionable to talk about such things publicly. He was diagnosed with dementia, most likely Alzheimer's, in the 29th year of our relationship. We walked the dementia Alzheimer's path together for 12 years. Gregory was not a victim of Alzheimer's, but rather a hero. He lived as well as possible as the disease progressed, and I was able to keep him safe and to support him by keeping him free of worries, responsibilities, and fears. I was able to help him compensate for his diminishing abilities while trying to make sure that the respect and communication which defined our relationship never faltered. I made sure that our daily life was full and rich and meaningful. Our life was filled with much laughter, as well as many tears, joys as well as sorrow. And above all, it was filled with love. Times were not easy, but we persevered. Admittedly, it's easier to talk about our adventure while looking back when compared to the sometimes hell that it was during the actual experience walking the dementia Alzheimer's path together. Alzheimer's is not just about failing memory, as some people believe, and as you probably know. It also affects the thinking process, bodily function, and day-to-day activities. For example, think about the skills and steps necessary in taking a drink of water. While this is automatic for most people, it's not automatic for a person with advanced dementia. First, you have to identify that you're thirsty. Then you have to understand that taking a drink of water will satisfy that need. You have to find a glass, fill it with water, not overfill it, and then pick up the glass, being careful not to knock it over. You lift it in your hand, but not so strongly that you break it and cut yourself. You lift it at the correct angle so as not to spill the water. You aim the glass towards your mouth, and you get the end of it to your lips without hurting yourself, especially since you can't really see your lips. And you allow just enough water to fill your mouth without letting it run down your chin. You swallow the water as you're lowering the glass back towards the table at the proper angle, again, so it doesn't fall over or spill. You finish swallowing the water carefully so it does not go down the wrong pipe, causing you to choke. If it does, you have to remember how to cough up with enough strength the water to be able to get it up out of your lungs. If you swallow incorrectly too often, you can get too much water in your lungs, which can lead to aspiration, which can lead to pneumonia, and eventually could lead to death. All this for want of being thirsty and needing to take a drink of water. This is just one example of the breakdown of abilities, cognitive as well as physical, mental, physiological, psychological, social, emotional, etc., which occurs with dementia, and the thousands of ways in which the disease expresses itself, usually different for each person affected. Gregory lived at home in our condo in Evanston, Illinois, here in the United States for 10 plus of his years with dementia. The last 18 months brought him to the point of needing such intense care that short of turning the condo into a 24/7 staffed hospital ward, I was no longer able to provide for his needs at home. The difficult decision was made, and we were very fortunate to find and to afford close to home the Lieberman Center for Memory Care. He began there on private pay, which then transitioned into government-supported Medicaid. The good part was that now I was no longer fully responsible for Gregory 24/7 and was grateful to have an amazing team of people to support his medical, living, and safety needs. The sad part was having to live alone and having him not be here in our home. At Lieberman Center, the medical staff included me in the team for all decisions, and they were always responsive to my inquiries and suggestions, as well as requests for me to be educated about the best health practices available. I always had the final say about Gregory's care. Gregory enjoyed most of the activities and hubbub at the center. Being with other people and developing a new sense of community helped him greatly as well. He made friends, enjoyed being there, and never once asked, "What am I doing here? I want to go home." I continued to provide most of his social emotional support and spend time with him every day. While the center provided excellent medical care, even with a ratio of caregiver to resident being higher than that required of the state of Illinois, there's never enough time to really give a person enough one-to-one loving attention. By now, Gregory no longer had the use of language, and he was not able to do much for himself. He always knew who I was and was happy to see me. We developed new ways of communicating. For the most part, he was happy and content and peaceful in his new life. When problems arose, which they did rarely, they were easily taken care of. Again, for the social emotional needs, besides my everyday visits, I hired a man to be with Gregory from 11 in the morning till 7 at night. This gave me great peace of mind during the day when I was not able to be there with Gregory. Manny provided Gregory with companionship, help with meals, made sure the kids knew when Gregory needed to be cleaned up, the aides. He ran the DVD, the TV, and the music for Greg. He helped with napping, exercising, and stretching. He kept him hydrated and plied with treats, Greg's favorite, small cookies, pretzels, chocolates, and donuts, all the things he loved. Manny helped Gregory get to building functions, read aloud to him, looked through picture books with him, and spent a lot of times outdoors during good weather. Hospice entered the picture during the last year of Gregory's life. Death was not imminent, but when you can prove a continuing need and when the illness is progressing, the state will pay for hospice care, besides Medicare. Hospice was so supportive to Gregory, and I'm grateful to this day for the medical help they provided him, but also for helping me understand fully the trajectory of dementia and, in the end, the process of dying. One day in early October, I received a call from hospice that informed me that it looked like Gregory was preparing himself to die. It was actually a surprise. First, because in some ways, having been on the dementia Alzheimer's path for so long, I don't think I really believed that Gregory would ever die. Secondly, he had been relatively healthy, while during the previous winter, he had gotten through 3 major bouts of coughs and colds, most likely pneumonia, on his own. It took him 3 days to finalize his preparations to die. Before I left on Saturday night, I once again told him to take care of himself and to not worry about me when he was ready to leave us. He was able to open his eyes briefly and give me one last kiss on the mouth after having been in a coma for those 3 days. I consider this a wonderful miracle. The next day, he peacefully began his next adventure on the other side of life as we know it. I will not go into great detail about the grief I felt or trying to come to grips with the finality of death, the meaning of life, or evaluating the 12 years of our living with dementia, during which time I was not always the best caregiver I could have been. Although friends always said on the scale of sainthood, I always scored at least at the angel level. But suffice it to say that Gregory and my love for each other was so strong that it helped me through. Great love causes great grief. They go hand in hand. It does get easier over time, but grief rears its emotional head now and then when you least expect it. I'm able to sit with my emotions and ask them what lessons they have brought me. And slowly, I begin to feel better, and I'm able to get on with my day. Gregory will always be with me. True love never ends. Whether you're the one who has received the diagnosis of dementia Alzheimer's, or the one who loves the person who has, the way in which dementia progresses and expresses itself over time can be one of the most, I don't have to tell you, challenging, painful, frightening, confusing, and frustrating experiences you'll ever experience. You will not always be at your best, but if done well and with love, I truly believe that it can also be a time of renewed love, creativity, and it brings many unexpected gifts. As my friend Kate Swaffer says, and I'm sure she has said it to you many times, quote, the diagnosis of dementia Alzheimer's does not have to be a death sentence. One can choose to live a meaningful, full life and find ways to deal with it as it progresses. I have said that Gregory was not a victim of Alzheimer's, but rather a hero. Recently, in looking back, I have been able to say, we, both of us, were not victims of Alzheimer's. We were both heroes. The documentary, Alzheimer's: A Love Story, which we're about to see, follows Gregory and me for a week towards the end of his life. The documentary was done in March 2015 by the son of Gregory's college roommate and best friend. Gregory died 7 months later. Gabe, the son of Greg's best friend, created the documentary as part of the requirements for one of his college courses in filmmaking at Chapman University, Dodge School of Media Arts in Orange, California. The message, which I believe is a beautiful one, takes Gregory and my 41-year love relationship and Gregory's 12 years living with dementia, Alzheimer's, our 12 years, and distills it into a moving 15-minute documentary. I also think that you will agree as you experience the story that the same-sex couple issue and the Alzheimer's issue almost seem to disappear. What emerges is the story of any two people who love each other very much, and what happens to that love when any long-term catastrophic disease strikes.